It's so 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Aspire Sports Show. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my co-hosts. I got Giggs and Brian here, and we're going to talk some football tonight. We're going to talk about some camp news not camp, preseason. We're going to talk about the preseason, some players that we need to highlight, we need to talk about. There's a couple players that we absolutely need to talk about today. So we got a lot of stuff planned here. So with that being said, what's up, guys? How you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Doing good. Feeling good.
Ready to talk some football?
Always.
All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing that we need to talk about is some preseason. And the biggest headlines, I feel like from this past weekend, are your rookie quarterbacks. So you have Trey Lance. He has that 80-yard pass that everybody likes to talk about, and then they kind of forget that he went 5 for 14 and sacked a couple times, but they like that 80-yard pass. And then you have Justin Fields, who was very good in the game this past week. And then also you have Zach Wilson, where I feel like Zach Wilson is kind of like the person that's not talked about a whole lot, especially in fantasy football. But we have these three quarterbacks. So we obviously know that Zach Wilson is going to start week 1. What about these other two guys? When do you expect them to see? Is there any chance that we see them week 1? We'll kick it off to we always go Giggs first. So Giggs, go ahead.
So as far as Mac Jones, Cam Newton situation, I think it's going to be Mac Jones personally.
I guess I mentioned Mac Jones.
That's the one I think is like going to surprise a lot of people. But I kind of expected it because Mac Jones was like a super accurate quarterback in college, and he's shown that already. And yes, he's not playing starters yet, but I think Mac Jones is going to give them the best chance to win this year. I wasn't impressed with Cam Newton last year. Even, he got COVID, he missed some time, but there's nothing he was doing that was impressive. He was just punching it in on the goal line, and the defense was bailing him out of games. So I think the Mac Jones start over Cam Newton will be the most surprising one.
You think that's going to be week 1?
I do. I really think.
Oh, baby.
But I think they're going to start Andy Dalton over Justin Fields because it's Matt Nagy and it's the Chicago Bears. And Trubisky started 2-0 last year, and he got pulled in the third game. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go Andy Dalton starts for Chicago, which is the wrong move. Zach Wilson will for sure start for the Jets. I like Mac Jones to start. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start. I think everyone is riding the Trey Lance train right now, the bus. They're all getting on the bandwagon, if you will. But I don't think they're going to go with Trey Lance. Jimmy Garoppolo, he just has to be able to stay healthy. He was in the Super Bowl not too long ago. I think it's still his job to lose right now, and I don't see why they would just give it to Trey Lance. Even though I think Lance will be the better quarterback down the stretch this year, I think he actually does give him a better chance to win. Maybe not week 1, but once he becomes acquainted to starters and, actual NFL games, not these preseason games, I think Lance will give him a better chance to win. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence will start.
Yeah, I didn't mention
there's no doubt about him.
Yeah,
but of those like 5 guys, that's how I would look at it.
What about you, Brian? Who do you?
So the two guys that I'll focus on are just going to be Fields and Lance because those are the two guys that are getting the most hype right now. I think that Justin Fields is not going to start until week 3 against the Browns. I think Matt Nagy, again, is going to want to start Dalton against the Rams. He doesn't want to start a rookie quarterback against that defense. And then I think he'll be convinced enough that Dalton will start week 2 against the Bengals. I'm not saying that Dalton's going to do well week 1, but a revenge game, revenge narrative, and then get him out of there. Let Justin Fields work. I'm on the same train as Giggs with Trey Lance as well. I think Garoppolo is going to start out the season for sure. And honestly, they start out at Detroit and at Philadelphia, 2 wins that I think the 49ers should start out with. So he'll be 2-0 and then, kind of go from there. They've got the Packers at home week 3 and anything could happen if that 49ers defense is healthy this year. They could end up taking the NFC West, honestly. And the other thing about Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a really handsome guy, and you don't just like take a handsome guy out of a football game unless, there's a bad enough reason that you do so. And I also think that Trey Lance is, he's a really raw rookie. I mean, yes, like you said, he had an 80-yard touchdown pass in preseason. Everyone's oohing on about that, but it was broken down coverage. He had a terrible percentage, 5 for 14, like you said, and just he had an 80-yard pass completed with that for broken down coverage. I mean, he's really raw. Give the guy some time. I'm not saying he's a bust by any means. It's preseason, but I think he's got a lot of work to do, and maybe mid to end of season, if he gets in, I think he'd be happy about that.
Yeah, I'll say I think Justin Fields, I believe week 2 is when he goes in, because I think that they're going to struggle really bad against the Rams, and then he's going to get pulled and be the starting quarterback week 2. But with Fields, I do think that Jimmy G isn't a bad quarterback by any means. Like he's an average quarterback, but I do look at their schedule, like you said, the first 2 weeks I see 2 wins. And then after that is kind of depending on what happens with Jimmy G. But the biggest problem with Jimmy G is he can't stay healthy. So I don't think that they're going to pull Jimmy G just to play Trey Lance. I feel like Jimmy G might get hurt and then they play Lance, but we'll see. I do think that you got to start your rookie quarterbacks, and we'll see how it goes. But I think that he is a raw quarterback. His talent, he's very raw. So I do think that it's better that they kind of give him a little bit of time. But all right, so real quick, we got 2 questions in chat. So the first one, I answered this one, but I'll ask you guys. So he has the 10th pick in a 12-man PPR league, full point PPR. Who do you think he should be aiming towards for the 10th pick?
You said this is a full point PPR?
Yeah, full point PPR. I said personally, there's a couple guys. I mean, if Aaron Jones is there, or Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, or Stephon Diggs, like one of those guys would be the guys that I would target if they're there. I feel like one of the wide receivers should probably be there. Maybe Stephon Diggs.
I would take one of those 3 receivers if it's full point PPR, and maybe even like an Austin Eckler if he's there.
Yeah, Austin Eckler, that's another good one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I actually just had the 10th pick this past weekend, and I ended up taking Najee Harris, but it was kind of a homer pick a little bit. Not that I'm a Steelers fan, but I just didn't want someone else to get him. No. I think Eckler is a guy that's in that range that I would target. I would try. I know it's an old strategy, but I would leave the first 2 rounds at least with 1 running back, unless you have like a 3 wide receiver league or something like that, or multiple flex where you can start like 4 wide receivers or something like that. I want at least that bell cow running back. So if you're pairing up a Austin Eckler with, say, Stephon Diggs, I'm not big on Diggs this year, but if you even pair him with like a Calvin Ridley, I think that's a really good takeaway from that end of the round pick. I
agree. Hey guys, week 1 opponent dropped Jamar Chase for Keelan Cole. What? Did I get in your league? How much fab would you spend on redraft? Honestly, I'd probably spend like all my fab. I mean, you're getting Jamar Chase, who's going in like the 5th round of drafts right now and can be an absolute stud this season. Like, I get it. I guess, I don't know. That is tough because you're going to have somebody there. You're going to have somebody that's going to spend all their fab. So I feel like the only way for you to actually get him is to spend it all.
If you like your team already, then I guess hold off. But I'm with you. Spend that money and get it. And get Jamar Chase.
That's like the surest thing.
Wide receiver 2, maybe even 1 upside.
Yeah. Like I would absolutely do that because you might not find anybody. Yeah, it's a platinum 14-man league. Well, whoever did that deserves to be slapped because that is criminal. How do you let that happen? I don't know what that guy's thinking. How do you feel about Deontay Johnson this season? I mean, I love Deontay. He's going to be a stud. He was a stud at the end of the season last year. I know a lot of people are super high in Chase Claypool, but listen, Deontay's Ben's guy. Deontay's going to get it done week out. How do you guys feel about Deontay? Would you rather go Chase Claypool or Deontay Johnson?
I like Deontay Johnson.
Out of the 2, I'd go Deontay Johnson, but I also believe for me, I don't think there's that much difference in a week to week between the three receivers. So for me, if I'm targeting a Pittsburgh receiver between, of course, Claypool, Johnson, and Juju, I would just take the guy that's going last out of the three. Let the other two guys go, and then just take that third guy, whether it's it's not going to be Johnson, but it'll be Claypool or it'll be Juju. So for me, I'm not ending up with Johnson this year on like any of my teams. Just because of that, I'm just kind of letting the third guy be in there. And I think all three have about the same value. I'd put Johnson at the top of that tier, but I'm just for that draft capital, it's about a round and a half earlier. I just don't think it's worth it.
I feel you. I mean, I love Deontay, but I do agree. Even like Juju, he goes super late in drafts, and he's somebody that's been really productive with Ben under center. Like I just don't envision that changing. All right. So any other questions? Feel free, guys, to drop them in the chat. So let's continue on because this is a big thing that needs to be talked about. All right. So this past weekend in preseason, you have Malcolm Brown play 16, and he was the first running back to go out there, but 16 of the first team snaps compared to Myles Gaskin's 7. So is it time to adjust the rankings for Myles Gaskin or relax? It's preseason. Take it away, Giggs. How do you feel about this situation?
You got to adjust it because his ADP was based on him being the number one guy. So if he's being out-snapped now, and if you have the head coach coming out saying it's going to be a 3 running back rotation, his ADP needs to drop now. So he was originally going like end of 4th, 5th rounds in drafts. I think he should be going before. He should be going after someone like Mike Davis, Chase Edmonds, people like that. Whereas before he was going before them.
I was going to ask you, Chase Edmonds. You take Chase Edmonds over Myles Gaskin right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Brian, how do you feel about the situation?
Yeah, I definitely think Malcolm Brown definitely needs to be considered. Not above Gaskin, but I'll definitely, bump up his ADP, bump down Gaskin. I would say at least by like a round. Right now we're seeing him go like beginning of the 4th, middle of the 4th round. I'm not buying him at that price as it was, especially after the preseason game. We remember what happened in LA last year when all of a sudden Malcolm Brown's poaching touches when we expected to be Cam Akers. All of a sudden Malcolm Brown is getting in there with Darrell Henderson at the beginning of the year and kind of was a thorn in our sides for most of the year. So, I would be staying away from Gaskin right now. But, Malcolm Brown, maybe a late round flyer or something.
I agree. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of high on Gaskin. He was like my RB number 20. And just because I do think he's a better running back than Malcolm Brown is, but obviously you hate to see it. And I will say it's week 1 of preseason. So, it didn't start off very good, and you hate to see that, but maybe he's just getting a little bit of extra time to practice because this is Myles Gaskin. He's been in here before, but I do think that Shane Gailey was their offense coordinator last year. I don't know. I think it's somebody different this year. So maybe this is what we're seeing now, and it's going to be a true 3-down committee or 3-back committee, which is very disappointing. So I would advise just targeting somebody else in that range. You even have like Travis Etienne that, hey, he was the 3rd back out there as well. So it is still early in preseason, but I do think we need to move him down a little bit with Myles Gaskin. So let's get into the next topic. The next topic is Phillip Lindsey. Phillip Lindsey was the first running back out there for Houston. He played on exclusively 1st and 2nd downs, and then you had David Johnson coming in on 3rd down. So with this recent development, Phillip Lindsey was going super late in drafts, and you have David Johnson. He's going like the 8th or 9th round, like in that range. So how do you feel about this situation? Which one would you draft? And you have to pick one. Which one would you draft? Giggs.
I'd go Phillip Lindsey because I think David Johnson will break down eventually in the season. And I think it looks like it's going to be his job, not David Johnson's.
Brian, who would you draft?
None of them.
Yeah.
No, but definitely not Mark Ingram because he's old and bad. Don't take that guy. I mean, if I have to take one, probably David Johnson. I don't know. That's terrible backfield, terrible team. They're going to be down a lot.
Exactly,
I feel like David Johnson is going to be in the game more than Phillip Lindsey for passing down situations. So I'd probably take David Johnson because of that.
That's how I feel about this. If we know, once again, it's only week 1 of the preseason. Like, yes, everybody likes to overreact. I mean, I do it at times as well. But it's only week 1 of the preseason. Let's see what happens. But if really, number one, did you have much interest in this backfield to begin with? And number two, this team should be probably the worst team in the NFL, especially if we have Deshaun Watson, who doesn't play for Houston, doesn't play a snap. You're going to probably have the worst team in the NFL. They have the worst defense, and we'll have basically the worst offense. So you're going to have a team that's going to throw the ball out. David Johnson, if we know he's the third down back, for me personally, I would still want David Johnson. It's not like you're expecting a high rushing season from him, but if he's going to be their third down back, I guess I would want him. But once again, I would just stay away from the backfield. He's going ahead of somebody like James Conner. Me personally, I'd rather take James Conner over David Johnson. So, all right, let's get into the next segment here. The next segment is the heaviest sleepers. So, and this is a perfect segue to this segment. Heaviest sleepers. So guys that you think are being totally slept on by the fantasy football community. Number one, they're not being talked about a whole lot. They're not these sexy guys. For me, the first player, somebody that I just talked about, I'm going to talk about James Conner. James Conner, for me, is a hometown hero, all right? I grew up in Erie, Pennsylvania. That's where James Conner's from. You hear about him all the time, okay? But for me, he's going to take that Kenyon Drake role. He's going to take that Kenyon Drake role. He's going to be involved, especially in the red zone, around the goal line, where it counts, where actually in his career, he's been very efficient around the goal line. So this is a team that just got a new offensive center, Rodney Hudson, arguably the best center in the league. So a team that last year, Kenyon Drake ran the ball over 230 times, played on 615 snaps. So a guy in James Conner that I do believe is going to has a significant role in this offense. Second player, not a sexy name, but that's going to be Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry last year was the first year in the past 6 seasons that he did not finish inside the top 20 at the position, wide receiver position. Last year, if you take out the 3 games, okay, we take out week 8, week 10, week 11, and the games that there was absolutely terrible weather in those games, from high winds to monsoon weather, high like raining, torrential downpour. If you take out those games, Jarvis Landry on a points per game basis was wide receiver number 21. All right, wide receiver number 21. And the last person I want to talk about is Mike Kasich. He's just a tight end that I do think is going pretty late. Where last year after Tua took over, he was wide receiver number 4 on a points per game basis. So Mike Kasich, he's going to be the, I would say, alpha tight end. He's not going to, nobody's going to take his role. Like, he's going to play all the snaps for a tight end. That's what you want for a later round guy, somebody who's going to constantly be on the field, Mike Kasich. So real quick, go ahead. Who are some guys that you like, Gigs, that you think the fantasy football community is sleeping on?
All right, well, I'll start with wide receiver. I think Brandon Cooks is being slept on. So Anthony Miller just hurt his shoulder. We don't know if he'll be ready week 1 or not. But let's just say Anthony Miller was out of the question. Like, he's no longer, starting week 1. I would say Brandon Cooks sees 12, 14 targets week 1. I know Tyrod Taylor doesn't have the best deep ball. He's kind of been a game manager quarterback most of his career. But Brandon Cooks finished last year as I want to say like a bottom end, like wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
And he started off slow, but once Will Fuller was out of the picture, he took off. Now he doesn't have Deshaun Watson throwing him the ball, but the team should be playing from behind. He should see plenty of volume as long as he stays healthy. I think he can be an excellent wide receiver 3 on someone's team, and he's going in like the 8th, 9th round in some drafts. So definitely be checking out Brandon Cooks for a sleeper at wide receiver. For the tight end position, I'm really big on Irv Smith. Kyle Rudolph is out. He's now with the Giants. Irv Smith, I think he's going on his 3rd year. He's going to be used a lot in the red zone. He's very fast, very athletic. I think Kirk Cousins is going to fall in love with him as a option in the pass game. So Irv Smith, who's going like 13th, 12th tight end off the board, I think he's for sure going to finish in the top 10 for tight ends in scoring. And then at running back, we just talked about him. Like, if Phillip Lindsey is there in like the 2nd to last or last round, I'm taking him, because if David Johnson does go down, there's no way that Mark Ingram is going to outsnap Phillip Lindsey. And yes, Phillip Lindsey is not that great of a running back, but volume's king in this league. As long as Phillip Lindsey can get me like 40 yards rushing and a couple catches for some yards and score a touchdown here and there, that's all you need for someone that late in the draft, because running back is really thin. Once you get past like the first, I would say like 3-4 rounds, I mean, it's really roll of a dice. It's a lot of guys in committees. So I'm actually not, and I've talked so much shit on Phillip Lindsey in the past. When Cruz sees this video, he'll know. But like, that is actually somebody that, like, if he's there real late, like, I'm going to jump on it.
Real quick before you go, Brian, MP, what's up, MP in the chat? What's up, homie? My draft got canceled and we made it a 10-team league, so that's good. Well, MP, we're going to be running some leagues here. So if you want to get in the league, I don't know if you're on Twitter, just say something in the comments, and we'll make sure you get in a league.
Who's that? Michael Pittman?
No, MP's I don't know. I don't even know what his name is, but he's a big. Who was his guys last year? Josh Jacobs is one. I know that. I think Antonio Gibson. I don't remember if there was any. There was probably somebody else, but I can't remember. But his big guy last year was Josh Jacobs and Antonio Gibson. But go ahead, Brian. Who are some of your sleepers that the fantasy football community is sleeping on?
So I'll start out with a quarterback that I think. I mean, I don't know how many people are really sleeping on him, but I do feel like he's one of the guys in the later rounds that I think is really good value, and it's Matt Stafford. I'm not saying necessarily, like I said, he's being slept on, but I think that offense is going to hum quite a bit this year. I mean, he's going around Brady, Burrow. I would take him over both of those guys personally. I think that offense is going to do really well this year. Cam Akers' injury is not going to help take the attention away from the pass game. But I do believe that Sean McVay has a good game plan with Stafford. See what Jared Goff did a couple years ago. And I mean, I feel like Stafford, sky's the limit for him. I think he's going to throw for 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns. I think he's going to have a great year. The second guy for me would be a wide receiver. My guy's Darnell Mooney this year. You can get him around the 10th round. And I think the guy's going to burn. Once Justin Fields gets on that field, I mean, Allen Robinson is the alpha number one. He's going to get a lot of attention down the field. So I think that Mooney is going to get single coverage as the two. And again, as Giggs referred to, with Anthony Miller leaving, I feel like that's a big upgrade for Mooney. So them getting rid of Anthony Miller, I feel like Nagy must trust Darnell Mooney enough to do that. Third guy, or actually it's a group of guys, two guys that are on the same team. It's Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. Two guys that I think they're in another prime position for offense. Watching the first preseason game, Singletary and that offensive line did really good moving the ball. I would like Singletary a little bit more in PPR and Moss more in a standard half PPR. But I do believe both are going to have plenty of opportunity to get some run on the field. And with that offense and how spread out that field is going to be with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, I feel like they could have a lot of holes to run up the middle for big gains.
Real quick, MP, yes, it was AJ Brown. That was another guy he always talked about. AJ Brown, yes, he's a stud. Should I DM? Yeah, you can DM us, and we'll get you. We haven't started the leagues yet. We'll be starting those up here shortly. So once we start them up, yeah, I mean, just DM us, just tell us you're interested or whatever, and we'll get you in some leagues here. Depending on how many you want to be in, what kind of leagues, because we're gonna do like super flex and that kind of stuff. So, just shoot us a DM. So real quick, Giggs, I saw your face about that. You don't like the Bills running backs?
I mean, if one of them was named the starter and it was like, we're going to just lean on you. Yeah, I would like one or the other, but I'd have to look at the stats. I feel like Singletary touched the ball. He had at least over 150 rushes last year. I doubt he broke like 600 yards. I thought for sure he'd be the one using the passing game, and it seemed like Zach Moss and Singletary both got a decent mix. Zach Moss was hurt at one point last year, and the backfield was Singletary's, and he did nothing with it. So I think yeah, I mean, if you want to have exposure, so I made the case for Phillip Lindsey, so it only makes sense. Like if you can get someone who's going to be the starting running back on that team, a high octane offense, yeah, you're going to want some exposure. But I would not want to say, let's say you have 2 starting running backs. I wouldn't feel comfortable with Singletary as my third on the bench. That's just not how I'd feel. Like I'd rather have Zach Moss than Singletary because I think he's more of the goal line guy. But yeah, I mean, I'm just not big on Singletary anymore. I liked him more last year and the year before, but after the Zach Moss thing, it's I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the running back situation there, but
Well, then I'll even say, like, I'm pretty sure Josh Allen over the past 3 years had 8 rushing touchdowns. So it's like you have a guy who is the goal line back, but then you just have Josh Allen, who the ultimate cheat code, like with these other quarterbacks where they just run it in from short because it's, like I said, it's just a damn cheat code. So let's go ahead and move on to the next segment here, and this is either or. So I'm going to give you a couple of guys here, and you gotta take one or the other. All right, so Mike Davis as your RB1 on your team, or Odell Beckham as your wide receiver number 1. Which one do you want? Giggs.
man, I guess I'll go with OBJ. The Browns run a lot. OBJ was really hit or miss last year. But if he's healthy and he can get the targets and the volume, he should be able to produce because he's such a phenomenal athlete. If OBJ is your number 1 receiver, you better have like Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, and like
Right.
Chris Carson as your other 3 running backs. But yeah, I mean, if you had to pick one or the other, I guess I would probably go OBJ.
Brian, would you rather have Travis Kelce and Antonio Gibson, or Saquon Barkley and Darren Waller?
It's not even close for me. It's Kelce and Gibson. In my opinion, both players are better at their position. I'm really down on Barkley this year. I'm really high on Antonio Gibson.
Oh, baby.
Kelce is Kelce. Darren Waller has not been out there for training camp yet. He's kind of got a lingering injury.
This is true.
If a guy like that, if Waller is hurt for any period of time, this is why I feel like Travis Kelce is so valuable. His consistency is like unmatched. So Darren Waller and or George Kittle, who is one of the most injury prone people. I hate classifying guys as injury prone, but he just is. He's balls to the wall. I'm going to go run 100 miles an hour at every single play. A block. The guy blocks like a madman. And for as a football player, that's awesome. Coach's dream, all that. Shanahan loves him. Great. Fantasy football wise, you don't necessarily want your end of the second, beginning of the third round draft pick going out there and throwing a block. Gets you no points. So I'll take Travis Kelce all day over him. And what I was trying to get at there is either one of those guys get hurt. I feel like there's a very clear top three this year. If either one of those guys get hurt, it makes Kelce even more valuable and the other guy even more valuable. So I would definitely go Kelce and Gibson there. I would. I'd take Kelce in the first round. I would. I mean, it would be end of the first for sure.
Yeah.
But if I started my draft with like a Travis Kelce, Antonio Gibson, I'm perfectly fine with that. Grab like I don't know. Edward-Helaire would be there in the third at that point, but grab like maybe a CD in the third. Heck yeah, I'd roll.
You'd roll with that team.
Absolutely.
All right, MP. I wasn't going to draft Jacobs, but he's a 3rd round, 4th round RB. That's too low. I feel like he will have a better year this year. So my question to you is, what makes you think that he's going to have a better year than what he did last year? He was a top 10 running back last year. I mean, he was a top 10 running back, and currently he's going at, I believe he's going, it depends on what you're looking at, like redraft or best ball leagues, but like right around like RB 18 range is where he's going. But my question is, what makes you think that? I mean, they just signed Kenyon Drake. This is a team that last year and this is actually, hey, I'll ask this one. And I would actually. So the next one is Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders. So perfect for you. So me personally, I'll say real quick, I don't know. I'd probably go. Currently, I have in my latest rankings, I believe I do have Miles Sanders ranked ahead of Josh Jacobs, but I think it's just a spot. But honestly, what I'm thinking about doing is probably moving Josh Jacobs up one, because I don't like Miles Sanders at all this upcoming season. I'll be honest with you. I just don't see any receiving potential with Miles Sanders this upcoming season. He was flat out awful last year. He was Pro Football's second worst rated receiver out of the backfield last year. He had all those drops, and apparently in camp, he's been dropping the ball. What did they do? What a team does in the offseason tells you everything. What did they do? They went out and drafted Kenny Gainwell, who back in 2019 was arguably one of the best wide receiving backs in that draft class. So they went out and drafted Kenny Gainwell, and then they still have Boston Scott. You already have the coaching staff said that it can be an even split between him and Boston Scott. So me personally, we have Josh Jacobs. We know that Josh Jacobs can produce. John Gruden has already made him produce, and I would probably go with Josh Jacobs at that point. But I wouldn't feel great about it. Who would you go, Brian? Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders?
I mean, Miles Sanders. For me, okay, so the big thing for me, the quarterback doesn't change much. Offenses, I feel like, are about even, but I feel like the Eagles' offensive line, when healthy, is one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I do. Yeah, I know I'm an Eagles homer. Their right side of the offensive line, when healthy, is the best in the NFL. Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce at center, of course, is the best offensive line in football on the right side. So him getting lanes on the right side of the field, I mean, I'll take that over Josh Jacobs. As you said, Kenyon Drake, I feel like he's going to poach touchdowns. He's going to get receptions. I mean, yes, it's going to happen to Miles Sanders too. I'm more of a Sanders guy, though. I think he's a little bit more agile, a little bit better of a pass catcher. I would take Sanders.
So, and real quick, I'll counter that. This is the reason why, and I was thinking about it, is that the biggest reason why I would go Josh Jacobs over Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is the ultimate tiebreaker, in my opinion, because you have, once again, a quarterback who's a very good runner. And when those guys are close down the goal line, it's easy to drop a play for a quarterback than it is your running back to score a touchdown. So that's the only reason. It is very close between the two. I view them as basically the same kind of running back right now, and how their roles are, or how they're going to be utilized in their offense. So, Giggs, how do you feel about it? Who are you going? I do think that you did like Miles Sanders, right?
Yeah, I'm a Miles Sanders guy. I'm also a Penn State homer, so I have a soft spot for him. The drops and the news coming out of camp obviously sucks. You hate to see it. But I think with Jalen Hurts in the game as the quarterback, I think it helps Miles Sanders more. Yeah, you might poach a couple touchdowns in the goal line, but I think it just kind of like opens up the run game a little bit more for Miles Sanders.
It did last year.
Yeah, I'm pretty, and the Eagles' offensive line, like Brian was saying, they were so banged up last year. So
it was like Dallas. They had nobody.
Mm-hmm. And what people don't know is Miles Sanders, his rookie year, he set the franchise record for most rushing yards for a Philadelphia Eagle. So I think the guy has the talent. I think if he gets the volume, he could be a really sneaky running back this year for how many people are sleeping on him. So I'm definitely going Miles Sanders over Josh Jacobs.
All right, and the last one here. I won't ask Brian because I know who he's going to go. But Jalen Waddle or Darnell Mooney? Who are you going, Giggs? I'll ask Brian.
I'm going to go Mooney because he's the number 2 option in the pass game there. Waddle probably has a little bit more talent, maybe a little bit more upside, but Mooney should see a lot of volume. And I mean, Waddle has to compete with Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, and Gasecki. Cole Kmet, Jimmy Graham, not that scary. Anthony Miller out of the way. I would probably go Mooney.
Brian, I'm assuming you're doing the same.
Of course. But I also, again, as long as Matt Nagy isn't a complete moron and gets Justin Fields in there by like week 3, this should be a no-brainer pick for me. I'm not a Tua guy, so if you're a Tua guy, you might say Waddle. If you're all in on Tua, I would probably go that way. I'm not. I do think Fields is a real deal. Mooney could start out a little rough with Dalton in there. I mean, again, they have the Rams week 1. Although he is going to be opposite side, I feel like Ramsey would more or less shadow Robinson, so he might have a little bit of value there. But with Dalton, I mean, I wouldn't touch the guy first couple weeks until we get Fields in there. But yeah, I would definitely take Mooney, of course.
So me personally, I would go Waddle. It's not so much that I'm a Tua guy. It's just I do look at this Dolphin situation, and yes, he does have to compete for targets. But let's think about it as well, is that which he hasn't been that healthy in his career too. But you do have that connection, which what's been reported is they've looked good in camp, these two together, that connection. But you have Will Fuller. How many games do we really think Will Fuller is going to play this season? How many games? Yes. How big of an impact did the PEDs have on his health? You have a guy who doesn't play in a full NFL season, and then all of a sudden has PEDs, and he's playing every single game. So, to me, he's somebody who's probably going to miss time. Devontae Parker has never been healthy. He's a guy that's constantly hurt as well. So you have Waddle out there, and I do think that connection, the previous connection of these two guys, does help him. I do like to. It's not to say that I don't like Darnell Mooney. I do like Darnell Mooney, but I do think that Jalen Waddle is a better football player, and I just think that there's higher upside because of the big play potential with Jalen Waddle and Tua Tagovailoa. So, but I totally get it. Darnell Mooney's just a sexy name right now. A lot of people love Darnell Mooney. And you also have what's his face, Matt Nagy talking him up too, saying that he's been great in his route running. So, hey, that's always nice. But at this time of the year, you do got to listen to everything and just be like, oh man, this guy's in the best shape of his life. So you constantly fucking hear that, right? It's all the time.
What I always say about preseason training camp and stuff is everyone is best shape of their life, all that. I hate the bullshit. But at the end of the day, they don't want to tell you any more than they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So these beat writers are going to throw any kind of information out there. If it's negative information, you do have to at least pay attention to it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because most of the time they just want to boost up the guys, boost up the morale. If a guy has a lingering injury, like that's why I'm a little bit lower on Saquon too, is because like we're hearing it's getting better and maybe back by week 1, but like we're not getting any clear confirmation on that. Where in the preseason and training camp, we should be getting he's good to go week 1. He'll be fine, yada, yada, yada. Like Devontae Smith, for example, who had his injury a couple weeks ago, was out there at practice and pads today. So his ceiling, he's looking good too.
I do like Devontae Smith this upcoming season. So any closing thoughts before we go ahead and end the stream? Who's going to win the league this year?
Not me.
No, I'm not going to. I don't like my team's okay.
I honestly do like Ryan's team a lot. His team to me is probably my favorite. I like Ryan's team a lot. I mean, outside of my team, of course, my team's my favorite, but Ryan's team's pretty good.
But Ryan's kind of a loser, so.
Ooh, shots fired, bruh. All right, so with that being said, thank you all for hanging out. Thank you guys for coming on the stream, of course. We're going to start going live, like, honestly, every single night. It might not be every single night, but every other night. We're going to get up a schedule here because we're getting close to draft season. Well, we're in draft season. Like, next week, I do think is when drafts really start to ramp up, and that's when really everybody is going to be having their drafts. So it's good. And then, of course, every single week, once the season starts, we'll be here live for you guys, helping you guys out. So if you haven't already, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and have a great night. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.